Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We got a really exciting opportunity today for you to meet with some of the LPs that just completed our third LP Institute cohort, where we help limited partners really master the craft of investing in emerging managers. As many of you may know, investing in venture capital is a little bit harder than it may seem, right? So, if you're going after an established venture capital firm to make an investment, you have lots and lots of data. You can analyze many past firms and many past funds that they've done. Look at the DPI, the TVPIs, what deals they did, what unicorns they had, and that makes it a quantitative decision to make established venture capital investments. However, when you're investing in emerging managers, it's much more qualitative. Who is the manager? What is their track record? Do their values and ideals match with your own? And we really take limited partners interested in investing in these emerging managers through a process to understand how venture capital works, how these managers work, and how to make these qualitative investment decisions. And in fact, many of the LPs then go on to make investments into emerging managers as part of the program to really go through all the steps of evaluating managers, doing diligence on managers, and ultimately investing in the managers themselves. And there's no better way to learn than by doing, right? So it's a really amazing experience. And I'm excited that we have some of the top performing LPs and top people in the cohort here today to talk about their experiences, to share with you what they've learned through the program so that you can also get a heads up in or a leg up in investing in this exciting component of the overall venture capital asset class. Let me talk a minute about emerging managers. I actually just was a couple minutes late because I was wrapping a introduction to our first emerging institute cohort where we're helping emerging managers get better at pitching limited partners. So we're really working on all sides of the investment ecosystem, in that we're helping limited partners become better at investing, and we're helping managers become better people to invest in. And I want to just double click on the emerging managers for a moment, because when you look at the overall venture capital asset class, historically, emerging managers have been the best performing segment of the asset class. They're hungrier, they work harder, they have untapped networks, they need to prove themselves. They really they don't have a lot of bureaucracy yet. They think outside the box, and as a result of all these and other things that they do differently, they tend to get as much as twice as good returns as established managers across all the different segments. So the top decile emerging managers do much better than the top decile established managers, et cetera. And so we really believe that emerging managers are the future of the asset class, not only because they get the better returns, but there's another more important reason. They're doing things differently. They really see venture capital as an opportunity to make the world a better place, where they can take their vision of the future and, with capital, invest in companies that will turn that vision into reality. And we believe that venture capital is the primary driver of positive change and innovation in the world today. And you see it because, let's use the United States as an example. In up until the 1970s, all developed nations in the world were roughly growing at the same pace. And in the 1970s, the US really took off. And Stanford's done a lot of research on why this happened. And the causal reason for the United States global dominance in the economy is because of venture capital. Venture capital created enormous wealth, enormous companies that were publicly listed. If you look at the volume of enormous public companies, it's all in the US. If you look at who those companies are, they're primarily venture capital backed businesses. So you had some legacy businesses, and you have legacy businesses in all countries around the world. But the really big companies, the Googles, the Nvidias, Teslas, et cetera, they were all venture capital funded. That's what has driven the US economy to be the number one economy in the world. So it's already proven that it can drive change. And we believe that these new managers are going to drive positive change, where they're going to fund things that make the world a better place for you, for me, for our children, a world that we can be proud of. And we need this now more than ever, right? We're facing really big problems as humanity on this planet. And to see managers passionate about solving those problems and limited partners eager to back them to make this world something that we can all be proud of. There's no better use of my time than to help that whole ecosystem take off, where passionate limited partners are backing visionary managers to invest in entrepreneurs that are fixing the problems of the world. And so, without further ado, I want to turn it over where you're going to hear from some amazing managers. Then we're going to have an opportunity, limited partners, excuse me, I said managers, I meant limited partners. So, you're going to hear from some limited partners. And then we're going to have tables where you can sit down and discuss what you've heard with the different people. And so that's going to be very exciting. Before we get there, though, at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see this little emoji. It looks like when you hover over it, says reaction. So I'm going to give it, there you go. So you can click all sorts of reactions. Now, I don't need the reactions. I'm sure I'm doing an okay job, but it would be really great if when you hear a limited partner say something that you're interested in or you think is really strong, show them that your opinion by using the emojis. It really helps them feel that they're on the right track. So without further ado, I'll turn it over and I'll be happy to see everyone at the tables in a few minutes. Hey, Sam, welcome. So Sam, by the way, let me just briefly introduce him. He is our works with us on our capital market side and helps run the LP Institute. So Sam, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Dale. We always appreciate your great introductions. So yeah, as Adeo mentioned, I'm Sam Hewlett. For those who've been attending these, sort of informational sessions, you're probably pretty familiar with me. I'm a former founder, an angel investor, an LP, and I'm just really excited today to introduce you to several of our kind of top limited partners. We had a really impressive third cohort of the LP Institute, and just really excited for you all to hear directly, from some of these great LPs. So our first panel today is going to be a little bit more forward-looking. So we're going to focus on trends and advice for aspiring LPs. So I'm really excited to welcome up onto the stage Ariel Eck, Bulent Celebi, and Joe Harkins. And maybe we'll start once everybody's up here by having each of you, maybe just give a couple of sentences on your background, what you're working on currently. Maybe we can start with Ariel.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having us. Excited to be here today. So I'm the managing director of Siegel Ventures, which is a single family office focused on emerging female fund managers who are making a positive impact on the world and achieving above market returns. My background is as an operator with a focus on marketing and storytelling, but I first got a taste of venture during business school, working for a fund in New York on the GP side. And now I'm excited to be on the LP side, joining our family office last year and enrolled in the LP Institute as part of my sort of onboarding experience. So, really thrilled to be here today among this amazing cohort.
Thanks, Ariel. Joe, maybe you could say a few words.
Yeah, hi everybody. Good to be here. Thank you, Sam. My background is in the media and entertainment business, and I currently do corporate development for a media and entertainment technology company. Have done a couple transactions on sell side and buy side, and recently became an LP in some funds and discovered VC Lab and the LP Institute through that, and have really enjoyed going through this. Thanks to everybody for that. So very happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. And Bulin, maybe you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm assuming you can hear me because I've been going back and forth.
Yeah,
Uh, uh, Very happy to be here. My background is originally from Turkey, spent quite a few years in Silicon Valley, and then returned back to Turkey to set up a tech startup. We basically invented Wi-Fi mesh, if you've ever heard of that in your homes and things like that. And a couple of years ago, I sold the company, and then have now been doing angel investing and mentoring startups and also becoming an LP in various different VC funds. And I got introduced to the LP Institute, um, and it's been fantastic. I really learned a lot, and more importantly, I really met some new amazing uh, new LPs, new I'm sorry, new general partners and managers, and they're doing some exciting stuff, and really happy to be here.
terrific. So let's get started with the panel. The first question that I wanted to ask you all about are what are some of the trends that you're most excited about that are shaping venture investing today? So I don't know if there's somebody who'd like to tackle that first. Otherwise, happy to call on somebody.
I can jump in.
Please.
So the trend that I'm most excited about is sort of increasing representation for women in the venture ecosystem. Women have 85% of spending power, and yet 75% of US VC firms don't have a single female investing partner. And so I see there as an enormous economic opportunity throughout the ecosystem, from women LPs to women VCs to female founders to female consumers, to really drive above market returns by really investing in that representation and perspective that women can bring to the table. So that's sort of what I'm most excited about right now.
I love that. Thank you. Thanks, Ariel. How about Joe? Any thoughts from you on trends that get you excited?
Yeah, some of the trends that I've noticed, I mean, everybody's really hot on AI right now, obviously. I think there's a lot of interesting trends within SaaS businesses, and especially the idea of small teams getting a large scale with a much smaller set of resources and disrupting maybe big players in the ecosystem. So I think it's a really exciting time right now as these startups go through this journey, and we're in a really interesting window of opportunity is the way I would describe it.
Couldn't agree with you more. And Bulin, how about yourself?
Sure. Um, I guess for me, what's really exciting is this whole shift in the VC industry to more early stage but smaller VC funds that really have the both the operating experience, the technical experience to actually to be able to pick out certain startups that fit a particular model that they're espousing, and that is really great because you know it would be very difficult for me to get into an A16Z. And even if it did, it's going to be part of this big macro, whatever, macro trend. But what you guys are doing with VC Lab and the LP Institute of actually, picking people that really have a lot of operating experience, or technical expertise where they know a particular topic relatively well, and having them to be able to form a fund and actually go after this category of startups, and then some of them, match with what I want to do. So that's really great. I really appreciate that, and that's a major trend for me.
That's a great insight. I'm just curious, Bjorn, to follow up on that. Being based in Turkey, are you seeing this sort of phenomena globally?
I mean, in most of the VCs in Turkey, by their very nature, because 15, 20 years ago, there was no VCs over here. So they all kind of went through that process. And so, yeah, at first I thought it was a Turkey specific thing. Um, and they're through government grants and things like that. There's money flowing all over the place, but the ones that are really successful kind of fit the model that you guys are talking about, and they're already in their, they finished their second fund and they're in their third and their fourth. Um, I wasn't expecting to see that in the U.S., frankly, and seeing it here is, where I say here, I'm in Istanbul right now. Uh, it's great, and having access to some of these very innovative startups that I would have never seen any other way. So
Awesome.
I really like it. It's great.
It's great. I love it. I mean, one of the things I think people forget, both for VC Lab and the LP Institute, is how global both of the programs are. And great to hear that kind of coincides with what you're seeing out there as well. So maybe moving on to the second question, I'd love to know whether there are specific attributes or strategies that you all believe will sort of define the most successful LPs in coming years. Ariel, maybe we can go back to you.
Sure. So on the LP side, I think that it's really important to be adding value to these funds in above and beyond the financial capital. And so we like to think about it in terms of financial capital, social capital, intellectual capital. And so, where you can add value to the funds that you're investing in, whether that's, making introductions on the corporate relations side or to other investors, and then intellectual capital based on your background, whether that's as an operator or as an investor. Um, when it comes to picking funds, I would echo what Joe and Bulent said around opportunity to invest at that early stage to fuel innovation and sort of see bigger rewards. And I'm also really um, bullish on these sort of more specialized funds where the fund managers have deep expertise in the area that they're focusing on and can add that sort of value themselves to their companies. And so I'm definitely drawn towards some of the funds that we've seen where they have a really tight thesis and deliver a lot of value to their founders.
Awesome. And Joe, how about yourself? Are there any specific strategies or attributes of top LPs you think going forward?
I really agree with everything Ariel just said, and I think if I could add anything, it would be having a thesis of your own that you've determined and that you are sticking with, so that you're not just out there floating around looking for whatever idea speaks to you, and then you go with that. I think having a determined thesis in advance of any conversation is really helpful, and then you can align around the GP's thesis and how does that align with you, and then Of course, as we've heard you and Adeo and others talk about quite a bit, aligning on values as an individual and making sure that, this is somebody you're going to be in a relationship with for a decade plus, right, as an LP. So you want to be sure, are you aligned on values? Do you have the alignment on thesis? And that, overall, that you're heading in the right direction from the very first conversation. And I found that's what really gets me comfortable early on and to a decision making process, having that kind of that thesis and that model to work from.
It's a terrific point. Yeah, that values alignment is so important. In Bulin, how about you?
Not sure if I can add too much more to what Ariel and Joe said. But by the way, I totally agree with what they are saying. Um, uh, Maybe I can just kind of reiterate this whole thing of thesis, and then from that thesis, I mean, does this person have any uh, significant or relevant knowledge about the sector that they're going after, and so therefore differentiate the fund itself, and try to be actually to be able to add some sort of value to the entrepreneurs, or more importantly, just being able to assess whether or not what the entrepreneur is claiming is actually relevant. Is will it really make a difference in the particular market that they're saying that, oh, we're going to do this, and everybody says they're going to disrupt this or disrupt that, but are they? Is there really a real need for it? So having that ability, I think, is very, very important. And what we're seeing again through the LP Institute and all the different firms that we got invited to, or invited to take a look at, there's a lot of great people out there with great ideas, or great segments, putting up some good arguments about why that segment is going to be great. I mean, Ariel earlier talked about women entrepreneurs. Well, there's a Swizzle that is basically doing just that. So isn't that great? And
Awesome.
we have access to that.
That's right. So we're kind of coming up to the 10 minutes time limit. So maybe what we'll do is just go around real quickly. I'd love to hear from each of you, what if you have like, say you were mentoring a new LP, what's one or two pieces of advice that you might offer them? Ariel, maybe we could start with you on that.
Yeah, I think I would reiterate that you're ultimately, especially at the early stage, betting on people. And so you need to make sure that you're a good fit. We talked about values alignment, but really personality wise, you're going to be in a relationship for a long time. And they're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them, right? So thinking about why a GP would want you on their cap table, how you're positioning yourself, how your skill sets and networks are complementary to one another, I think is key. I think think about how you're setting yourself up on the back end to operationalize everything, whether that's Airtable or different systems you can use like Decile Group. And then the last thing is the importance of diversifying vintage. I think that's one thing that I wish I'd known is we invested really heavily in the 2021 boom, but we should have probably held back more capital and taken, there's that long-term time horizon. And so that's the other piece of advice I have.
Awesome. Thank you. And how about you, Joe? What advice did you have for
Yeah,
a new LP?
I think, well, I agree with everything Ariel said as well, and Bulin's insights. I think, really just evaluating all the different opportunities and being very, if I would give any advice, to be picky, right? You have, much like a GP has, maybe a lot of deal flow and they're getting a lot of opportunities to invest in. You as an LP have to treat it kind of the same way, where you're going to see a lot of really good funds and a lot of really good opportunities, and you have to then choose which ones do you actually want to invest in. And taking your time, being thorough. I think this is one thing the program really taught me, is to have a process, to follow your due diligence process all the way through, and do everything you can to feel comfortable, so that once you get in this relationship for the long term, you feel like you're going to have the best outcome.
Awesome. And Bueller?
Boy, it's pretty tough following these two people. Um, what could I add? Uh, Maybe one of the things I fell in love with uh, so many managers and say, oh, that's great, and this is great, this is great, and I think what's also possible to do is to diversify even with the number of managers. You know, you don't have to put huge sums of money into any one particular manager, and they were actually quite a few of them were more open to saying, you know, I kind of like your idea. I don't fully get it, but do you mind if we make something a little bit smaller than your standard and get engaged? And I think diversifying a number of really managers that you really like and you think that they're going to go somewhere, because at the end we really don't know. I mean, it's the Pareto 80/20 rule applied all over again. And some of these managers are going to be wildly successful, and a few are going to be just okay. And so try to diversify if you can.
Love it. Yeah, diversification is definitely key. Well, Joe, Buell, and Ariel, thank you all so much for joining us on this first panel. We'll conclude here, and with that, maybe we will invite up our next couple of panelists. We've got Jeffrey Jabone and Nevsta Karmavet. So once they get up on stage, hey, Jeffrey.
Greetings.
Hi, Nevsta.
Hello.
Perfect. Well, maybe I could
Hi.
have each of you, kind of briefly introduce yourself to the audience as well.
Should ladies start?
I believe
Go
so.
right ahead.
Yeah. I'm a behavioral scientist and I'm a popular teacher. I've been teaching over 25 years. I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I built my first company when I was 23. At the age of 25, I was leading a group of 85 people. And then we sold our first company with my husband, kept on growing different companies, different projects. I dived deep into technology, built my own startup, and then started investing in startups 8 years ago when I moved to London. And I have been investing in startups as an angel investor. I have lost some money, I have earned some money. And at the end of the day, I started thinking maybe it's better to just start investing in VCs and just becoming an LP, because you need time. And I don't have the time. I don't have the time, or I don't have the focus to, you know, go over their data rooms. And how I invested as an angel investor was I think a bit emotional, just to the founders I liked, and as a behavioral scientist, just thinking that founder can make it. And then yeah, and then I decided to become an LP. Here I am.
Amazing. Jeffrey, how about your background?
I'm a former international insurance underwriting executive. Basically, my background was in liability and executive risk. So everything from directors and officers to financial risk to executive protection. And what I found myself doing after an M&A transaction that gave me enough of an opportunity to decide what else I wanted to do in my professional career was starting to mentor startups in the insurtech space around 2018 or so. I made my first angel investment around that time and started to cut a few checks personally. And I had an exit, fortunately, within 2 years' time for one of the earlier checks that was an educational technology company. And that was the beginning for me in this asset class to start to get really attracted to the upside opportunities. And, I realized, though, after getting even more in depth in this space, that I didn't have enough true understanding of some of the particulars and details on how to make an appropriate portfolio. So I came to the LP Institute because of this lack of an understanding of the overall space, but then also a desire to fully have some depth, and that ties back to my underwriting method, when I was managing a team of underwriters. So it really kind of made sense for me to get into this space, given all the insurance and risk analysis that I had as far as my core. And I'm an independent investor now. I'm really trying to make sure that, to the point that we've heard before, diversification is reflected in the portfolio of my personal investments. And being a LP as well as an angel has been a lot of fun, for me. So unlike Nefsa, I do have a bit of time, and it's been rewarding to also be a mentor to a lot of the founders that I've come to know. And now, as an LP in some of our funds, I am a pretty active LP as well, and a promoter of the funds that I've invested in to date.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. And I think it's so cool that you kind of took that career in underwriting risk and brought it over to the limited partners side of things. So yeah, maybe we could get started. I'd love to hear from each of you, kind of what initially attracted you to the LP Institute, and maybe how the experience has sort of shaped your approach to investing in venture, investing in funds. And Nefsa, maybe we could start with you.
Yeah, sure. One of our friends, and also who has been my mentor when I had my own startup, when I was building my own startup, Chidam, actually led me to LP Institute. She finished the VC Institute, and she knows how passionate I am on helping young entrepreneurs master their lives and master their businesses. So I've more been on the teaching side. I teach behavioral sciences, so I help people change their behavioral habits and thinking habits so that they can get the best results and literally reach to ultimate levels of performance. So I've been doing that for many years, working with entrepreneurs who joined my business mastery program, which is a very famous program in the Turkish community around the world, also here in the UK for the past 3 years. And yeah, so she was like, Okay, I know that you're very passionate on helping entrepreneurs, and this is one of the ways how you can help them. And that's how I started LP Institute, and I learned a lot. Yeah, I love the whole process.
Amazing. And I feel like behavioral psychology is so important, right, for these fund managers. I mean, in addition to obviously having to pick companies and the operational side of things, there's also just the mental, side of trying to start something new. And so no doubt there's a lot of value that you're adding as an LP. And Jeffrey, how about you? How did you kind of learn about the program, and how has it sort of shaped your approach to making investments?
Well, I could tell you that I made my first LP investment in 2023. And when I cut that, it was a six-figure check, a sizable commit. I was very enthusiastic about that first fund manager. It was based out of Austin, Texas. And I was like, this is fantastic. This is, really going to be a way for me to get some significant return and really juice up my overall investments. And to date, things have been good, but I have a much more sobered approach than I did then. To the point I think Nafsa, you said earlier, it's easy to sort of get enamored with somebody with some personality and competence, and it's great to identify with those individuals. But it was through an investment in Decile specifically that I met Adeo and Mike, and really was impressed with the team. I had not heard of VC Lab before. I had not heard of any of what was underway. But as soon as the LP Institute crossed my radar, and the team invited me to participate, I was all in. I just pushed all my chips to that. And it was through a conversation with Adeo and Mike that I learned about the offerings, and really thought through how it would benefit me. And then of course the chance to meet Marco was terrific, and yourself, Sam, sort of made sure that it was where I was going to allocate my time and focus, or at least a sizable enough percentage for me to get out of it what I wanted, which is some discipline around how I go about reviewing and making assessments around further LP investments. So once I cut that first check and decided that I enjoyed being a limited partner and essentially outsourcing deal flow and expertise to other managers who essentially could be working on my behalf and on the behalf of my portfolio, and then learning how to do that. I was just all in, and I continue to be so. I think it's a program that I'm going to, even though I'm done with cohort 3, stay very close, and I'm sure the lessons I'll be learning will keep paying dividends over time.
Amazing. So I think both of you are have been quite active as LPs. So if you signed a pact or ended up making an investment during the cohort without naming any names, I'd be curious, just kind of what stood out to you about the GPs. Like, what are some of the top things that you were kind of like looking for, and what was kind of really catalyze the interest or investment, so to speak.
Yeah.
Nefta, maybe we can start
Yeah,
with you.
sure. For me, I mean, what I got from, I think that's the biggest thing I got from LP Institute is that I have seen and clearly understood that this is a teamwork. So it's like you're just you're not investing to one VC, but to a team, and also you're part of that team. And I think that's very important to understand, because as an angel investor, I mean, when I was an angel, just an angel investor, I thought I could just analyze the founder with my own expertise, and then get results just by that, without deeply diving into the data rooms and the financials. But now I understand that there are multiple stages in this process. It's like, understand the founder, who they are, what they're capable of is one thing, and then the team, and then the financials and the market and how big the market is. So it's like, because there are so many components to building a startup, um, understanding that this is a team's work was very important for me. So what I was looking out for was, because I understood that clearly, which team would I like to be part of? So it's kind of like, okay, where are we? Are we on the same page? And when I had meetings with GPs, it was all about seeing them as partners rather than me investing, but seeing us as a team, as, okay, it's kind of like a relationship, like a marriage. I was thinking long term, a long term relationship, not only with this fund, because once you start working with a VC, then I might invest to their second fund, and then maybe later. So it was kind of like, for me, the process was trying to understand which team is, with which team we are on the same page with, and their strategy, and where I am and where they are, because there is no good or bad, but there are only different strategies and different teams, like I don't know, like a football team or a basketball team. So for me, the process was about that. I met some amazing people, amazing GPs, and I think they're all very committed, and they're all doing amazing jobs. And they have been a few who I felt connected with on a deeper level. For example, supporting women founders or immigrants, or yeah.
Yeah. I love that insight of kind of trying to align yourself with which team do you sort of vibe best with or sort of fit in with most. That's really that's wonderful. Jeffrey, how about you?
For me, I was looking, first and foremost, there were basically 3 criteria, but the first one was whomever I felt was aligned with my desire for returns, right? So in the interviews that I held, which were facilitated very well through the LP Institute process of matching LPs to GPs, and the team is also very active in trying to make recommendations or suggestions as to possible meetings. I was listening very carefully to see not just who I may have shared values with, but who also wanted to make sure that their fund was returned, by virtue of the investments that they made. And so I was looking for cues as to whether they spoke about IRR, and whether they spoke about some of the financial metrics in the course of their explanation as to why they wanted to do this in the first place, to ensure that they are incentivized. I also was curious about, number 2, what prompted them to get into this in the first place, right? You know, whether there was some sort of career issue that they may have had, or whether they wanted to, you know, quote unquote, make some significant contribution to change the world, or at least participate in adding value to society and things of that sort. You know, which I have a very wide scope for. But, you know, I do want to ensure that the people that I'd be investing with are people that I would be, you know, also, if they were campaigning, for example, these are people that I would also support their campaign. So the first was, you know, me thinking, yeah, they can actually make me some money at the same time that they're making money for themselves and their other LPs. But that also that these are people who have some admirable qualities and some competency. And then the last thing, you know, when I was looking at the GPs was to try to really challenge them to think bigger than maybe what their initial thesis considerations were. So for each one of them, I pushed a little bit on what I heard was their reason for getting into the business and their thesis. And I know we can't name names, so I'm really trying to be as anonymous as possible. But you know, the extent that they described what they were intending to do and why they got into it, I asked them to really think bigger, right? And how could that be redefined to encompass a broader suite of founders, for example, or territories or regions, and then to in that hear what they expect to do once they're done with Fund One, right? Do they see some sort of runway to Fund Two, Three, and Four, or what have you, to get a sense of their level of commitment? So those were the three basically items that I had in my personal agenda when I was having these conversations with the many managers that I met with, and I met with I think a little more than most. You know, I started with one or two that made sense, and then I got some recommendations from the team for two or three. Um, and you know, next thing I know, I'm actually, you know, allocating time to meet with about 8, 9. I think I topped off at somewhere around 9 of them, and also some prior ones. I reached out to some previous VC cohort members too, and then, you know, that was rewarding. And each of those conversations helped to prepare me for the next one, right?
Very cool.
So that was useful.
Yeah, I love that focus on sort of motivations and sort of underlying hunger, as well as, you know, trying to help folks like think a little bit bigger at times. So, you know, we're kind of close here on the 10 minutes. So maybe I'll just kind of rapid fire. I would love to hear from each of you kind of a similar question to closing of the last panel, which is, you know, what sort of advice would you have for a new LP, or somebody considering joining the LP Institute? Um, you know, Nevsta, maybe we could start with you.
Sure. I would say first of all, getting crystal clear on your vision and your purpose, because I think why are you choosing the LP path is the most important thing. And if you clearly understand your why, your purpose, and why you're choosing this path, then I believe everything just flows. You know, you meet people and you learn. And like Jeffrey says, every meeting you learn something, and every meeting is kind of like um, uh, teaching you new ways to help entrepreneurs. Like for me, helping entrepreneurs grow their companies and, you know, supporting disruptive businesses, innovative ideas is a big thing for me, and helping the entrepreneurs individually. So that was one of my biggest purposes when I started. And being clear on that, you know, leads you to having the right conversations with the right people. You're in front of the right people. So I think just getting clear on your vision and on your purpose, and then you just manage to find your way.
That's a great point. And Jeffrey, how about you? One a piece of advice for a new LP or someone joining the LP Institute.
Well, I'll tell you the advice I've already given people, Sam, and I know you've already spoken to some of the folks that I've referred to you. To be honest, they've come back to me and appreciated having a chat with you. The first is, you know, to Nevsa's points, really understand why you're doing this in the first place. Like, it's not just about you know, just learning something new, learning more, etc. The actual intention of the program is to become an LP if you're not already one, and to become a better LP if you are. So, there's got to be some sort of clear mandate in your mind. This is me giving advice to some individuals as to why you want to participate in the program. And then the next thing, of course, is if selected, do the work. I really enjoyed going through all of the sprints, Sam, because I felt like I think I may have shared this with you before. It was like journaling. It's like keeping a diary. A lot of the questions were provocative to me, and I had to really just sort of lean back and say, it's an interesting question, and actually complete the assignment, not just to do the assignment, but recognize that the assignment is for me, right? It's a way for me to articulate something that might be implicit, but once I've documented on paper, I can critique it and get a better sense as to what I intend to do and how I'm going to go about doing it. So it's important to actually do the sprint assignments. This is something else I would advise someone. So once you know that you really want to do it, go ahead and intend to complete it. Not just be a passive participant or a spectator, but be an active member of the cohort.
I really appreciate that, and we did not pay Jeffrey to say that you should be doing all of your sprints, but no, that's great. Well, I want to thank both of you and really thank all of our panelists. We're going to sort of break in just a moment, and we're going to go to networking tables. We were running a little bit late, so I apologize that we're not going to have a little bit more time at the networking tables, but I'll be at one of the admissions tables if you're somebody in the audience who's kind of considering joining and you've got some questions about the program. But, I think what you heard today just speaks volumes about the program. These are really some, super thoughtful and intentional folks, each of whom I think really just embodies, what we hope for in what we'd call like a top, emerging LP. And so, yeah, just want to thank everybody for participating in the program. I learned just as much from you as, I'm sure you do from all of us at the LP Institute and VC Lab. And at the end of the day, it's really all about supporting these amazing emerging GPs, right? Who really, at the end of the day, are then supporting the real heroes in the equation to a large extent, which are the founders who are out there, actively trying to, make a big difference in the world. So, ultimately, it's people backing people, and we're just really, proud of all of the work that all of you have done, and hope you'll remain active in the ecosystem. So a huge thank you to everybody, and with that we'll kind of conclude today's panels and the graduation session for today, and we'll move to networking tables. So hopefully some of the panelists will stick around. If you've got a couple of questions, feel free to pop over to a table and ask them anything venture related. So thanks all of you, and we'll see you at the next session.